Region, that is Madurai and Tamil Nadu on the map. I'm glad to be a part of the galaxy of speakers today and also the many illustrious TEDx speakers across the world. So thank you for that opportunity. I'd like you to take a walk with me 20 years back. So we start the talk in the past. It was a much simpler world. Black and white TV, inland cards, inland letters, postcards, trunk calls. I don't know, many of you in this audience might not remember trunk calls, but if you wanted to call somebody in another city, you had to book the call and then wait for a few hours, sometimes even a day, to actually connect. It was also a time when you trained yourself for a particular profession, you joined a particular company, stayed in that company or that organization all your life, and then you had a retirement party. Life was very simple. Let's fast forward to today, where we can connect in a fraction of a second with any point anywhere in the world. One person talking in Dindigul can be seen on the web in California if they are still awake and watching us. This is also a time when all the answers are not available with the cleverest person in the room, but all the answers are available with this phenomenon called Google. Information is just a couple of clicks away. This is also a time when if you stay in the same job for 3 years, your colleagues are asking you what happened. Have you given up the race? So what we are preparing ourselves for, 30 years back, 20 years back, with a large degree of confidence, we could predict what the future would look like. Now we are scared to predict 3 months into the future. If you look at what is happening to the computer industry, if you look at what is happening to the medical industry, 30 years back, 20 years back, there was no treatment for heart attack. So if you had a heart attack, they put you in bed, you stay in bed for a month, and then if you're brave enough, you get up and walk again. Today, as Dr. Shiva Subramaniam told us, you have stents, you have bypass surgery, you have implantable devices, you have artificial hearts. This is where the world has come. So what is the point we are making? And the point is this: no matter what your training, no matter what your education, no matter what you are preparing yourself for, you will be faced with the unpredictable. So I took this quote from a former American president who said, "We cannot prepare the future for our children, but we can prepare our children for the future." So each one of you in this room today should ask yourself that along with this excellent education that you're getting in an excellent college, are you preparing yourself for the future? What does this take to prepare yourself for the future? What does this mean? I'd just like to take one short story from my life to those of you who actually listened to my introduction, to those of you who actually listened to my resume. You would have realized that I'm actually doing today a job for which I am not trained, for which I received no formal training, but which I like to believe I do reasonably well. What did I train to be? I started off my career with the hope of becoming a doctor. This used to be a favorite dream for many students, again 20 years ago. It was something your parents were very happy of. The minute you joined medical college, called for some celebration. So I did my MBBS. And then you post-graduated. Yes, I did my post-graduation from AIIMS, which is generally accepted as one of the best institutes in the country, particularly for postgraduate medical education. And so I was set for this life to become an outstanding pathologist. And then life changed. I moved to Chennai And I was given this opportunity to take up medical administration. It's something that I had no experience of. I was a technically trained and technically qualified person. But there is something in facing up to the challenge with a positive attitude, and when the administration gave me this chance and they said, why don't you look and see if you can run a hospital, I took up the challenge and decided to give it my best. I must tell you now, for about 14 years I have been doing this, and it's an extremely fulfilling and extremely satisfying job. I learned, among other things, and the many things that I learned, perhaps the most difficult one for me was to learn how to read the balance sheet. And this was a balance sheet which was a little bit more complicated than what Dr. Shivasubramaniam portrayed in his last slide. So we need to be prepared to face up to whatever life throws at you. So what you need to take out of this institution and when we step out into life is a positive attitude. So if I were to stop for a minute and ask all of you in this room, what is it that you will be tomorrow? It's going to be difficult for you to answer. But there is one thing that I hope each one of you will be in your own way, in your own field. And I hope that each one of you will be a leader. When we talk of leaders, it is a devalued word today. Because when we talk of leaders, we think of people who are not very appealing role models. And we are searching around for role models. What does leadership mean to people today? Can I have the next slide? Yes, leadership is power. Leadership is this fancy designation and this fancy title and all the trappings that go with it. Maybe a fancy car, if you are lucky, a beautiful secretary and a fancy office. And hundreds of people at your beck and call. But is that what leadership is about? In this day and age, we are used to this command and control system like an army, where you have one person sitting at the top, the general, who will ask people to march, and then they go out and they march and they achieve whatever is the military objective. Today, the great organizations, the iconic organizations, the companies that people talk about and the companies that go out and achieve great things are not companies that are run that way. They are flat organizations where power doesn't come from the size of your room or the size of your title or even the size of your paycheck. Power comes from some intangible things. So as we step out into the world, let us look at whether we can acquire these intangible things and set ourselves up to become leaders in whatever we do. Can I have the next slide? So the leadership is all about influence. Whether you have the title or not, are you able to build up a community of people who are committed and passionate to what you believe in and who will back you in whatever goal you set out for yourself? Have the next slide. This is a quote from John Maxwell, who's written several books on leadership. He's actually written the 21 immutable laws of leadership, and he says, leadership is influence. The ability to get the people in this room to listen to you and to go with you on the road that you have decided to go upon. Have the next slide. If your actions inspire others to dream more, learn more, do more, and become more, you are a leader. So the leadership is not about what you achieve. Leadership is about what the people around you achieve. And that is a slight change. There's a paradigm shift in the way we look at leaders. It's not about advancing their cause. It is about advancing your cause. Can I have the next slide? The second power is the power to communicate. And by communicate, I don't mean words. I don't mean a TEDx talk. Can I have the next slide? Let's look at this guy. I thought for a minute whether we should have Rajnikant here. But I put Amitabh because there is one lesson from his life. We know that he was a superstar, perhaps the greatest superstar the country has known, with all apologies to Rajnikant. And we know that when BBC ran a poll about the most influential Indian of the millennium, it was not a scientist, it was not a politician, it was not a freedom fighter, it was Amitabh who made it to the top of the list. So at least the people in the audience would have voted for him. Please keep that slide. What happened to Amitabh at the end of his film career? Everything went fat. Now a person in his position who had tasted the acme of success, there was nothing for him to look forward to. And then it came upon him the decision to start on the small screen, which had never been done before. And we know that when Amitabh did Kaun Banega Crorepati, it changed forever the way people look at television in India. So that is the power of communication. It's all about you and your belief that no matter what the frame of reference, whether it's the big screen or whether it's the small screen, whether you're talking to people in a cinema hall or you're reaching out to them in their homes every day, if you believe in yourself and you have the ability to communicate, even if it's a game show and you are writing your own script, you can still be a success story. The next person, again no introduction, Steve Jobs. The reason I put Steve Jobs there is all of us know the great success story of Steve Jobs, how he set up Apple in a garage with $10,000 and took it to become a $5 million company. This is the first era of Apple, Apple I. Now the unimaginable happened. Steve Jobs was thrown out of his own company. For those of you who've actually listened to his valedictory address, which he gave at Stanford in 2005, he says the unimaginable happened, the unthinkable happened. This was a company that I had set up. This was the company that was driven by my technology, my idea. And I think this can happen only in America, where John Scully walks into your office and your board says, Steve Jobs, you're not good enough to run this company anymore and you have to go out. Now, if this had happened to one of us, I don't know what we would have done. We'd have probably, if you were a real coward, bullet in your head, you're a little more brave, you would have retired somewhere and spent the rest of your life writing your memoirs. Everything is over. I built this great company. It's been taken away from me. What did Steve Jobs do? And it's very insightful when he talks about it. He says, I was in deep depression for 3 weeks. My wife left me. I had no money in the bank. I was losing my house, the house that I was living in. And then I thought to myself, I'm the same person. Just because Apple has thrown me out, it doesn't mean that I have become bad. I am still the same smart, capable, inventive, hard-working, persistent person who built up this great company. So why can I not do it again? And this is the mark of a great leader. He set up a company, or he invested in a company called Pixar Communications, which you might have heard of, which became the most successful studio in Hollywood. So look at the way his life changed from a guy who was in a technology field, making computers. He moved to a communication field. But he took with him the skills and the attitudes which had made him great in one company, and he built up another company. Pixar went on to record the maximum number of consecutive hits in Hollywood history. And then he had a triumphant return back to Apple, and then with the launch of the iPhone, we know that he changed forever the way we look at cell phones. So this is what belief in yourself and your ability to communicate can do. And Steve Jobs always used to say one thing about communication, which I'd like to repeat here. And he used to say, think like a wise man, but talk in the language of the people. If we look at the iPhone, we don't see the technology behind it. We don't see the Gorilla Glass, and we don't see the software. But what we see is a work of art which meets every requirement that you as a user want. It is something that you're proud to hold and you're proud to have, and you look at that Apple symbol and you feel that you're part of something great. Now this, I must admit that I don't own an iPhone, and I was a very late entrant. I bought the iPad very late. But still, he communicates this vision of great technology and beautiful design coming together to produce a product that still is unrivaled in the market. Can I have the next slide? And so if a man hasn't discovered something that he will die for, he isn't fit to live. Can I have the next slide? So ultimately, and this is the last part of my talk, a leader should have a power to create. Create what? Create a vision, create a sense of purpose, a feeling that yes, there is a door and there is a road that is going to lead us somewhere great. But above all, a leader must have the ability to create, can I have the next slide? Create a bond. If you can get people around you to work together, I think that you will reach and achieve whatever objective you have set for yourself. Let me give you one example from Apollo, the organization that I work for. Our chairman, Padma Vibhushan Dr. Reddy, he was a cardiologist trained in US. And one of the things, he's actually a visionary who changed the healthcare scenario of the country, who changed the way people look at Indian healthcare. And today when he says that India is the global healthcare destination of the world, all of us doctors, wherever we may be, we are proud to be a part of this Indian healthcare movement. And Dr. Reddy always used to say, the thing that we learned from him, when he started Apollo in 1983, it was a 150-bedded hospital, and today Apollo is more than 10,000 beds, 55 hospitals across the world. He used to say that his original team, he had a core group of about 25-30 people, many eminent doctors among them, Dr. Girinath, Dr. M.K. Mani, some of the names you might know. These were the people who set up the specialties in the country. The first angioplasty was done in Apollo. The first multi-organ transplant was done in Apollo. The longest and largest series of kidney transplants was done in Apollo. So these were really the pioneers in their field. And in this 30-odd years that Apollo has been in existence, not one person of that original team has left the organization. Now, in the organization that I work in Madurai, attrition is a problem. So we are asking ourselves every day, why are we not able to keep our team together? Why is it that people are leaving? And there lies the difference. Because this is the mark of a great leader, an ability to create a bond, an ability to create a sense of belonging among the people he works with. Please look at the people around you, because if you can't carry your team with you, you will find it very difficult no matter what you do. Work on this. Look very consciously at good leaders. See the team they have. Look at Mahendra Singh Dhoni. I haven't been following cricket recently, but he did take us to the World Cup. Mark of a great leader, able to build a team. Right? Can I have the next slide? And make people work together. Can I have the next slide? So what is important about leaders? And this will be my last slide. What is important about leaders is not that they create followers, but that they create more leaders. They create this army of empowered people who buy into your vision, who buy into your sense of purpose, who share with you your goals and objectives. And this is the team that will go out and achieve whatever you have set for yourself as a goal for your organization, for your community, or for your country. Thank you.